I am here now today with two of the top residential brokers in New York City, Pamela Dark of Stribling and Associates, and Cathy Taub, who happens also to be my sister. There is no nepotism involved here. Cathy just handed me this piece of paper. It's a pink slip to a new Mercedes, and Cathy and Pamela are very experienced. They each are involved with new developments and residential sales. So Pamela is the director of sales at 252 East 57th Street, a new luxury condominium. And Cathy recently sold out another luxury condominium, 151 East 78th Street, which is designed by architect Peter Penoyer, who is also a guest later today on the show. So they're both in completely different locations. One is nestled in the Upper East Side. I think it's on a block where there's a school. That's Cathy's on 78th Street, or it's near the Allen Stevenson School, correct?
Just a block away.
Okay, and Pamela's is where, right? Give me the exact location.
The entrance is on 57th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues.
So we have two diametrically opposed neighborhoods, yet both very popular in terms of where people want to live.
Well, that's true, Rob. There's been a lot of new development in various neighborhoods in Manhattan, and Pamela and I are both really excited about the projects that we've been working on. On the Upper East Side, 151 East 78th Street joins several other buildings that have been ground-up new construction in the past few years, bringing a whole new level of residential development into this neighborhood.
Well, are more neighborhoods certain specific neighborhoods seeing more new developments than others, Pamela?
I would say that the Midtown area, specifically 57th Street, which has become exceptionally popular, and actually, speaking of neighborhoods, it is also being connected to the Upper East Side. We're seeing more families that want to purchase there. It's very easy to get uptown to schools, and there's a lot going on there, and a lot of people work in that area, so people can walk to work. And I think that it's very much of a transitional area that is not considered as much a part of Midtown as it used to be.
Well, I just was going to say, New York used to be such a provincial city. Lawrence Block wrote a book called Small Town about how New York was a series of small towns. There was a character that never left their neighborhood or would go below 14th Street unless it was for the reading of a will. And now with new developments and also new commercial establishments and places like Italy and various food markets, it seems like people aren't beholden to staying in their particular neighborhood. So does that affect how somebody's going to move if they're going to live in Midtown?
Well, the old moniker, location, location, location. That's still true. However, because there's been so much new development around the city and there's been such a huge appetite for it, we've seen a real expanse in terms of what people are willing to, where people are willing to live. I mean, there are some people that come to us and say, I must live in the Village, I must live on the Upper West Side or the Upper East Side. But oftentimes buyers are really driven by the buildings themselves, and so are flexible in terms of where they'll look to live, which is really exciting. And means that we as real estate brokers have to be familiar with a lot of different locations, and that makes our job more interesting. And we're typically not pigeonholed into any particular neighborhood.
Okay, that's going to bring me to Pamela. Before you say anything, I was looking at your webpage on www.stribling.com. And Pamela, spell your name for us.
D''ARC.
Right. It's not like Pamela in the dark. Pamela will show you the light. And speaking of light, so I was looking at this photo of one of the apartments at 57th Street, and it really was gorgeous. I mean, tell me a little bit about that building. What are the amenities like? What's new and different? Because, well, let me just to preface this, I live in a what was once a new development that was 10 years ago on 96th and 3rd, 1 Carnegie Hill, and it's described as a lifestyle.
Yes. Well, I think actually that people do purchase in new developments because there is an entire lifestyle being offered. And I think that the amenities are often are starting to change. And actually, I think that one of the things that this building on 57th Street has is, our apartments start on the 36th floor. So it's views and light, which is what drives a lot of buyers. And the amenities that I think have become very important to people are actually pet-friendly amenities. That's very sought after at this point.
We have a dog spa in my building.
And we also have a dog play space. And actually, that's been very well received by people. And then we also have a private swimming pool and, entertainment areas, a screening room, 2 furnished guest suites, which is something that is not very common and extremely useful for people.
That's so when you have relatives that come over and you don't want them to stay with you, you can put them up there. I love that already.
Yes.
I'm going to be coming
great
to buy
feature.
a place there soon. Oh, Cathy, address this for me. So if your co-ops and older buildings have to compete with this, so how are they doing in terms of matching things? I know some buildings now are adding gyms and bike rooms, things like that. How are they adapting?
Well, the great thing about New York is that we have such a diversity of inventory. So we've got the old pre-war co-ops or co-ops, which were most of the co-op inventory is built in the 1920s and 30s. So those buildings have their own special allure. And if someone is looking for brand new construction and the amenities that are offered in the new construction buildings, they might not be looking at the older pre-war models. But what the pre-war co-ops offer is great room dimensionality, ceiling height, typically location on major avenues like Central Park West or Fifth Avenue.
And a lot of character as well. But there are pre-war conversions. So there are projects that are new developments in pre-war buildings. So you can have both if that's a requirement.
One of the things I have to mention is our sponsor, which is MC Home Loans, the foremost mortgage bank for residential mortgages. So if you're going to buy one of these fantastic apartments from Cathy or Pamela, or Tony Simone, our producer, who is also a broker and he's in the control room, then you have to call MC Home Loans at 844-667-7300. Melissa Cohn is a mortgage expert and icon and groundbreaker in the field, and she knows everything, and you can read her blog at Melissa Cohn, C-O-H-N, M-E-L-L-I-S-S-A, COHN.mortgage, M-O-R-T-G-A-G-E. I've learned more reading that than I have from the Wall Street Journal. Melissa is very articulate and succinct, and again, she can be reached at 844-667-7300. Don't answer just one of those form email things. Speak directly to Melissa. We are continuing our discussion on Stribling's New York with Pamela Dark and Cathy Taub of Stribling and Associates. I have a question for you about condos and co-ops. Cathy, what can you tell me in layman's terms, layperson's terms?
Well, the big difference, I think, with co-ops is that the buyer, after signing a contract to purchase the apartment, actually then has to make an application to the board and be interviewed and approved for the purchase. And with condominiums, while there might be a board application, there's no interview, and the board issues what's called a right of first refusal or a waiver of the right of first refusal if they approve the buyer. That sounds very technical, but essentially it's very, very rare for a condominium not to approve an application or grant the right of or the waiver of the right of first refusal. And the difference there is that with a co-op, people really have to reveal a lot about their financials and their social status, and that's a big part of the process. The flip side of that, the advantages that some people find is that a co-op board can control the neighbors, who your neighbors are, and it's a little bit more like a club, although that's changed a lot from the way it used to be.
Well, Pamela, tell me about 252 East 57th. What's the process like to buy there?
Well, it's a little bit different with when you're buying a new development for the first time. It's a very simple process where you basically sign a contract and put down a deposit. I think the difference is that with condominiums, one can purchase in other entities, so there's more privacy, and that's very appealing to many people. Although some of the pre-wars, some of the co-ops are being more flexible in terms of allowing trusts and estate planning and that sort of thing. And I do think actually that co-ops are being mindful of the new world of amenities and trying to accommodate in their spaces whatever they can to appeal to buyers. I mean,
another thing to remember with the condominiums is that, of course, you can rent out your apartment with great flexibility. So particularly with foreign buyers who may be investment buyers and looking to have an income-producing asset, where they're not occupying, they can rent out the apartments with much greater flexibility with a co-op, which is an advantage for some. But for other people, they don't want to have apartments being in a place where they're living. They don't want to have their neighbors as lessees. So there's pluses and minuses with both. And again, what's great about Manhattan is that we have something for everybody. Just depending on what someone's interests and passions are.
I'm curious about amenities because my building has a pool, it has a massage room, it has a Pilates room, and before that I had lived in more of a stuffier Park Avenue kind of building, and it was a lot more formal. So you'll get on the elevator in my building and people come on wearing their bathrobes because they're going downstairs to the gym and the pool, or they're going to take a sauna, and we're already behind the times because the building's 10 years old. So what is the future of amenities now in New York? Pamela was mentioning in the green room, like a basketball court in one building. What else is happening?
I think that I wish I lived in your building where people are walking around with their bathrobes, first of all, because nobody's doing that in my building.
I know Cathy finds that hard. My sister challenges everything I say, but it is absolutely true. Flip-flops and bathrobes.
Well, I live on the west side in the Majestic, which is a wonderful pre-war building, and I'm going to encourage everyone at the next board meeting to walk around in their flip-flops and bathrobes. But
well, there's no pool there, though.
I think spas are actually very appealing to people. Our building will have a beautiful spa, and I also think parking, on-site parking, which is something that most of the older buildings don't have. And I mean, when you can drive into your building and then go straight to the gym and work out and then go up to your apartment, I think it's very appealing for busy people.
Parking is huge. It's so hard to get parking. Even all the parking spaces in Manhattan, or many of them, are being turned into new condominiums. So,
or bicycle.
Or
racks.
Bicycle racks are required. That is something that all new buildings must have spaces for bicycles. It's a law.
I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me that. Okay, because I just thought it was so great that we have this elaborate bicycle room. Not to digress too much, but here's something I've heard about. I don't know if the two of you have, but somebody was telling me now there's going to be a new virtual parking service. So they park your car further away, like way uptown or downtown, probably uptown, and then you go on an app and you tell them you want your car if you have to give 2 hours notice, and they bring it to you. So it's delivered to the front of your building, but it's not actually in a garage near you.
I am not familiar with that particular app, but it sounds fantastic. I think the most basic amenities that everybody wants is a gym and a kid's playroom and maybe some outdoor space on the roof. And, of course, spa-like amenities are really de rigueur in a high luxury residential building. But as a minimum, a gym and a kid's playroom and outdoor space are sort of the go-to amenities. And a lot of the co-ops are going that route as well.
But I really must say that I do think that New York has become extremely dog-centric, and that really having a pet room is becoming much more important to people.
That's a really big thing in my building because, if you got to give your dog a bath in the tub, then it makes a mess in your bathroom and it's smelly. And so we have, they call it a pet spa, but it's actually, it's this all tile room with a giant metal, walk-in bathtub with a big hose. I mean, it's pretty elaborate, and people use it daily.
And there's also a social aspect that a lot of people socialize around their dogs.
The flip side of that is there are a lot of buildings that have either no pet rules, or for those who don't want to be in the elevator with a lot of pets, or some buildings require that the dogs actually go down a different elevator. And so while we all love our pets in Manhattan, there are some exceptions to that rule, I guess.
Okay, we've covered our time, but we're going to have you guys come back on the next show and the ones thereafter because you've been very helpful and informative, and I always enjoy spending time with both of you. So thank you for being on Stribling's New York. This is Cathy Taub and Pamela Dark. Look at the Stribling website and learn more about them and the properties they have and how they can help you if you're buying, selling, thinking about it, maybe even renting if it's an extremely elaborate apartment. They only deal with the best properties in New York. They'll help you no matter what you need.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you, Rob.